You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Rod Mahood, your in-game voice of the Niagara IceDogs, and you're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your podcast source for all game analysis, team interviews, and up-to-date news regarding the Niagara IceDogs.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs. This is your January 11th, 2023 edition. God, I can't even believe that we're still in 2023 now. God, it makes me feel old. But anyways, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode here. If you guys are enjoying the video version of the podcast, hit like, hit subscribe, hit that bell for all updates on videos get released here on the YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us on demand in audio form, give us some love on whatever audio platform you're choosing to use to listen to us right now. As well, make sure you're following us at Dog Pound Podcast, the official Twitter account right now for the Niagara IceDogs, since theirs is still in verification mode.
Come on, Elon.
Elon, not he's taking a while.
Not an Ice Dog fan.
And you also like us on Facebook and Instagram.
He's probably a London Knight fan.
Right. Facebook and Instagram for all updates on those social media platforms as well, but at Dog Pound Podcast for all of your Niagara IceDogs updates. Anything going on with the IceDogs, we are posting it on there for you guys right now on behalf of the Niagara IceDogs and at OHL IceDogs. And again, they appreciate your guys' patience during this process if you're really that upset about the IceDogs Twitter account not being up. Again, I don't know, it's been for like 3 weeks now, the same thing over and over again, and we've posted I don't know how many updates, and there was still some confusion. People saying, okay, let's get these out of the way.
IceDogs, they turned off their Twitter account.
Yeah, they didn't trade it, they didn't get rid of it, and they didn't, what's the other one that the Twitterverse is saying? Oh, that they didn't want to pay for it. Meanwhile, Twitter's free. So, and whatever else, like excuses or conspiracy theories are out there, the IceDogs Twitter account is just down in verification mode, still on the last step. They're trying to work through it, so bear with them. But go check our stuff out for the time being, because we're doing all updates on the games and everything, live tweeting, doing all that good jazz. So, with that said, my name is Brandon Caputo. You can follow me on Twitter at bcaputo_AGM. I got to change that thing. It's still my old Twitter handle. But anyways, my co-host still has his Twitter handle still right there at justkyle51. Kyle, another 3-game week for the IceDogs, back-to-back-to-back. Again, the trade deadline has come and gone as the time of recording this episode. No more trades. This is going to be the IceDogs team for the rest of the 2023 season.
Yeah, I just want to preface this. It has nothing to do with the trade deadline. I could rant all day long. We're not going to do that. The scheduling makes me scratch my head so much sometimes. I don't mind 3 games back to back to back, whatever. It's the fact of how they schedule it drives me bananas. Like, IceDogs play Saturday night in North Bay. Saturday night in
Barrie,
and then have to travel to North Bay early for a 2 o'clock. I understand if it's a 7 o'clock game. For a 2 o'clock in the afternoon game, that's barely enough time to get to the rink and do pregame by the time you leave the hotel in the morning. After playing the game the night before, I'm probably you get bus legs, and I'm like, I know other teams probably do it too, but it's like, why are you making teams do it in the first place? I understand you can have afternoon games, but like off a back-to-back, who makes these decisions, and like how are they agreed upon? It just blows my mind every time I see it, and this is not the first time the IceDogs have done it this year. This has been multiple times. So, anyways, enough of my rant about the scheduling. But trade deadline is come and gone today. It's a noon hour. It was done. I know people were confused and thought yesterday was the deadline, but that was the overager deadline yesterday. Today was the actual overall official deadline, and 2 moves.
Yep.
To add to the many moves this year. people often like to talk about.
I think they said it was up to 27 moves or what have you. But again, before we get into that, obviously there were some mistakes made. I don't think anybody here, even in the front office, would say mistakes happen. But again, you don't know what happens when you bring in players, if they're going to mix or not. And that's why when they came in, they wanted to put their stamp on this team, and they tried to win right off the bat. It didn't work. So then they recouped as many draft picks as they can, and they've got a restocked cupboard of draft picks to go along here. Again,
and young players.
It's perfect. Exactly.
Players that can be in the OHL for the next 3 years, including that includes their overage year. So really, they got rid of the players they needed to get and got the picks back they need to get for those players, and also acquiring younger talent as well.
Yeah.
People that they've had scouts. It's not that they just pick. For some reason, some people treat it like they just pick random people just to throw into trades. And it's like, no, they do their due diligence. They have scouts for a reason. They have people that go to other teams and scout specific players, or they've seen these players when they've come in and have played the IceDogs and kept tabs on them. There's reasons why they pick and choose some players for trades. So, clearly the scouts are seeing in the upper management are seeing something in these players they've acquired and think that they could be part of this future for the IceDogs. So
they don't just throw a dart onto a board and say, "Oh, we want that guy.
We'll take that guy.
We like his name,
that
so we'll
guy
take
looks
him."
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I think it'd fit on a jersey, so we'll bring him in. No. But the IceDogs made 2 trades today. Getting rid of a player, getting a nice return back, and then went and seeking out a player for 2 late picks. I think they're 3 years from now, 2026 picks for the Sudbury player, which I'm gonna let you pronounce his name because I don't want to butcher it off the bat. So.
Exactly. So we'll get into these trades right now, but preface for later in the episode, we've got an interview with newcomer Zakary Lavoie. Look forward to talking to him. We've got a feature interview with assistant coach Brandon Shaw, his first time on the show, discussing his return to Barrie, being a hometown boy there pregame, and then obviously our wrap up with head coach of the Niagara IceDogs, Ryan Kuwabara, about the weekend. So as far as the trades go, Alex Asadorian comes over from the Sudbury Wolves for Asadorian for a 2026 second from Windsor and a 2026 third from Sioux. These trades, these picks just get thrown around like candy. I don't even people are trading away picks that they got from other teams. So it's crazy to think how many times these picks get recycled. But regardless, neither of them are Sudbury's picks, but they had the rights to these picks. So Asadorian coming in. Again, younger player. He likes to. I watched a small interview clip with him in Sudbury. He says he likes to play a full 200-foot game, and he takes pride in that. So I look forward to seeing what he can do coming over and getting more ice time, because that's a big thing too. Is a lot of these guys that the IceDogs have acquired, people are like, well, what, they only got 9 points on the year. Well, you try having more than 9 points when you're playing on the 4th line or scratched most of the time. So. Again, these guys are getting bigger opportunities now coming over to Niagara on teams that, just they weren't getting that certain ice time, and they weren't be giving that great opportunity to go and prove themselves as, top 9 or top 6 forwards here in the OHL.
Yeah, and he also brings speed. He's a small guy. He's only about 5'9", 5'10", but he's known for his speed and strong playmaking ability. So that's another thing he brings to the table for the IceDogs. Second-round pick back in 2021, 37th overall, so he's a high pick. So you're bringing a lot of upper high-class draft talent to the Niagara IceDogs. So 2005 born forward. So again, a younger player at this point in his OHL career. And he goes a decent pick. We'll see what he's got. We'll see how he meshes with the team. He's got 36 points in his OHL career, but like you said, playing on a Sudbury team on the bottom 6, you're not going to stand out with the amount of points playing in the bottom 6 from a team. So he's going to come into Niagara. Hopefully, maybe he fits in with the top 6, or maybe plays on that 3rd line and gets a lot more playing time than he did with Sudbury. And we'll see how he does. You never know. What if for some reason he meshes well with the first line? He ends up playing on the first line, right? So we'll see what happens and what the coach Kuwabara has in store for him and where he wants to place him. But I don't know. I would say decent trade for the IceDogs, bringing in a rookie for the rebuild they're clearly doing.
and a lot of people were high on him last year. So there's been a lot of positivity regarding this trade. So, excuse me, that's a positive for sure. And then the other trade, which was kind of interesting given the amount of picks that Niagara was able to recoup, but Nolan Dan, who came over from Sarnia in the offseason for 2 picks, ends up getting flipped for 6 draft picks, including a second, 2/3, and 3/4. So, again, Nolan Dan came over, was projected to be, a top 6 goal scorer for this team. I believe if he would have been able to score on some breakaways, he might, have 15, 20 goals by now, but just really didn't have the production that I think Niagara expected out of him, and I think he expected more out of himself as well.
Yeah, and he's exactly an example of what we just talked about. He's someone who we like to have had fit in the lineup because we thought of all these dream scenarios of him playing with who, and we saw what he did in training camp, and he had a hell of a shot. We're like, well, we can't wait to see what he can do in game. And it just never really worked. He never really got off to a strong foot. He never really showed what he showed, like what he had in Sarnia last year and, what he showed out of camp. It just, something wasn't sitting right. And so, that's another thing what happens too. A player can get traded to a team. He could be good on the one team, get traded to another team. He can be, bad, like just straight up just not the same as he was on the other team. And sometimes a change of scenery doesn't always work out for a player. And that's what happened with Nolan Dan and Niagara. And it's unfortunate. But getting a nice return from him at the end of the day is also a good thing to build for the future. Because, again, the IceDogs are clearly in rebuild mode, and we traded Nolan Dan, and we got a hell of a lot of picks back, more than I thought. A second, 2/3, and 3/4. Like, that is a lot, especially when, you can't trade your first-round picks in the OHL. It's crazy because you saw that Cam Loops trade for Zellweger and how many firsts were given up, like 4 or 5 first-round picks. Cam Loops lost their first-round picks for the next 4 or 5 years for Zellweger. So
they're like the LA Rams over there. But.
Yeah, so like second-round picks are a high value when it comes to trading. Same with third and fourth; they're higher than what they present themselves. So getting that return for Nolan Dan, I think, was nice, especially the way he played this year. So clearly, Flint sees something that's maybe they can see that. If he was on their team, he'd perform better and he'd mix well with their teammates. So something they see in him was worth that many draft picks, and we were able to get that for Dan. I think that was a solid trade by Darren, and I guess I'll include Wes. I'm not really sure who's exactly part of all the trades, but upper management, I guess I'll say. Yeah, he's going into his OA year next year, so I thought it was a solid pick. For a person who only has 6 goals on the year with 10 assists, a lot of draft picks to get back, and I think we got a nice return for him, especially, again, we're a rebuilding team. We can officially, I mean, we probably could have said for the last couple of weeks we were a rebuilding team, but we are officially in the rebuilding stage as of 2023.
Yeah, as of all these trades happening, and it's again, they're trying to get rid of guys that are possible overagers next year to give them a lot of flexibility going into next year. Maybe acquire some overagers later in the year if they think that they can contend.
Yeah, the draft this year too, because you got to think if the IceDogs, we never know what's going to happen for the rest of the season. If they go on a run and they end up battling for the last playoff spot, that's cool. That's good. Get playoff experience for the rookies, but if things are still going the way they're going now and we end up, finishing in the bottom, we potentially could have 2 top 5 picks, 2 top 5 picks that are going to play on this team next year. And they're going to have to, make room for those 2 players who are probably going to get top 6 minutes because Niagara's going to have a very good chance at the lottery, especially because they changed the lottery system this year. Thanks. Could have had it last year, but this year, last place team gets 40% at first overall. So that's a really good chance that the IceDogs could snag the first overall pick. And we already have the 5th overall pick secured due to the Sam Dickinson stuff with London. So we're most likely going to get 2 top 5 picks. And that is something great and a massive thing to have at this point when you're rebuilding. If you're in a rebuilding stage, you officially call it now. What a year to have it than when you have 2 top 5 picks coming in this draft.
Yeah, so if you're the fan base, you can get excited about that. I know, again, the results haven't been there on the ice at the moment, but again, they're asking for patience at this point. And you can see what the plan is now. They've got 5 picks in the. I think it's at least 5 picks in the first 80 in this upcoming draft, including, like you mentioned, probably 2 top 5 picks at this point if they don't make the playoffs.
Rubrick's brother, who is projected number 1 overall, who, if fans don't remember, was the other player that applied for exceptional status along with Michael Misa.
Yep. And
obviously they granted
one
it to Michael Misa, but that just proves that he was good enough to almost get exemptional status into the OHL, and we have the potential of getting him at first overall this year.
Yeah, and again, people are going to say, oh, the recruiting, don't have another Sam Dickinson situation. Well, that was in the middle of a transition with new ownership and things like that, so I think they'll have a lot of time to be able to do their due diligence and be able to, actually go through that process in a normal way, because it was just kind of expedited and all over the place in the offseason with the changing of ownership and things like that. So let's hope that they've learned from that, and then moving forward, they can better prepare for that for next time. So the other trade that we missed out on by 1 day after last week's recording, which usually happens, we always get unlucky with that. Yeah, no more trades for the rest of the year, so breaking news on that. But the Windsor Spitfire trade, obviously, they go out and get Shane Wright yesterday, so they're loading up once again. Mark Savard and Shane Wright seems like a match made in heaven to me, with him getting sent back and Kingston really just dangling that carrot out there and all having the teams bid over them. But the Windsor Spitfires ended up making another trade with Niagara, so they end up acquiring Aiden Castle and Rodwin Denisio, who was just back from the World Juniors for Team Swiss. Obviously performed well over there. And in return, the IceDogs got 2 picks and 2 players, including a 2026 second and a 6th-round pick in 2024, and then forward Christopher O'Flaherty and giant 6'6" defenseman and former 20th overall pick of the Windsor Spitfires, Bronson Ride. And I've got a chance to watch both of these guys on the weekend at all 3 games. I really like what I see from these guys, and you can tell that they've come from a good program in Windsor and that they can play the right way.
Yeah, Bronson, from what I watched, Brandon got to be there in person. I got to watch on CHL TV, but Bronson I was really impressed with. His defensive play was exceptional. Like he really uses his size to his advantage, which you've listened to this show forever. I'm a big fan of when there's a big player out there and he plays like a big player. He plays like a big player. So big fan of Bronson right off the bat. O'Flaherty, I saw some glimpses of something that we could use with him, especially for the future. So it is what it is, though. I mean, we had to do Aiden Castle having a really good year. And Windsor's trying to go for it, right? So when we're in the rebuilding stage, what better way than to help out Aiden Castle and be on a competing team like Windsor, especially Rodwin Denisio, after the World Juniors that he has, him to come back now into being on a playoff contending team and possibly Memorial Cup contending team. Because to be realistic here, you got 3 teams in the OHL right now that are probably going to be battling for that Memorial Cup spot. Yeah, you have the 67s, Knights, and Spitfires that are having exceptional seasons right now, followed by Saginaw and teams like Peterborough and Sarnia. So it's going to be a really tight race when it comes down to it, and it's going to be one hell of a playoffs this year that I'm sure a lot of people are going to have their eyes on. But, Aiden Castle I was a really big fan of, and he was really good for us, especially Rodwin, too. Rodwin's been with us the longest, obviously longer than Castle, but it was nice to see that he had a really good World Juniors, scoring the goals that he did and really standing out for Team Swiss. And now he gets to come home and he cuts to come to Windsor on a competing team this year. So I'm happy for both of them, and I'm happy that they now get to have the chance to go to the playoffs and compete, and possibly, you never know, maybe make it to the Memorial Cup and experience that, because that's the end goal, right? That's what players in the CHL all try to play to, not only get drafted into the NHL, but to play for a Memorial Cup tournament is the biggest thing for them. And if you ever talk to any player that has played in Memorial Cup tournament, it's the world to them.
Oh yeah, it's the biggest crown in junior hockey, and there's a reason for that. But Aiden Castle, can you imagine if he ends up getting the chance to play with Shane Wright at some point? Like that could be a match made in heaven for him.
Thank God we don't play Windsor. I was telling Brandon off air. Thank God I looked at the schedule right away. As soon as Shane Wright got traded, I'm like, oh God, did we play Windsor again?
No, don't you remember those two House of Horror games against Windsor? They were horrible.
So can you imagine if Shane Wright and Aiden Castle were on that?
And Joey Costanzo's out there too.
Yeah,
now.
I was gonna say Rodwin and Aiden Castle get to go join our boy Joey, fan of the show. I don't know if he still listens, but fan of the show, Joey Costanzo, over in Windsor.
Some analysis from our good friend Manny Pava out there, who covers the Windsor Spitfires. He goes, Bronson Ride was a really good kid. He was just figuring out how to use his big frame and get more physical. He will be a very good player. O'Flaherty can be a scorer. He puts himself in good positions. Just needs to finish around the goal more, but a very hard worker. So good praise there for Manny Pava, who got to see both these players all year long. And I really like what I saw from, O'Flaherty's the 200-foot guy, reliable, can bang. And Ride obviously is huge and can assert himself physically. So I really like adding both these guys, and I think they bring an aspect to the IceDogs that they kind of need. They kind of got pushed around at times this year, and I think adding those guys from a really good program, some grit. I think this is a good trade for them, and then they get a second and a second and a sixth. So again, they get draft picks and they get two young players, Bronson Ride being a very promising young player, almost basically being a first-round pick. I think he was like the first pick of the second round, basically. So really like those trades as well. So with that, Kyle, I mean, you look at it, they've moved out, 5 or 6 guys that they were trying to build around this year. It didn't work, and now they've been able to recoup, solid draft picks and solid young players that can really help them move forward. I just want to get the full list here so I get it right. They moved out Brendan Sirizotti, Pano Femus, Nolan Dan, Pasquale Zito, Aiden Castle, and Rodwin Denizio. And in, they brought Zakary Lavoie, Chris O'Flaherty, Michael Podolu, Alex Asadorian, and Bronson Riding, and a boatload of picks. So for me, I think that Darren DeDobler and the upper management staff did a good job of kind of, fixing the moves that they had made early in the season that people had viewed as questionable, and they went out and got really good return for the assets that they gave up.
Exactly, and the players I got back, like we mentioned, shouts to our buddy Manny Pava with the inside information to Windsor players, and that's good to hear. And grit is a big thing. I really hope that the IceDogs do focus on in the draft this year, is acquiring some players with grit. I think that's what's kind of missing out of this team. Basically, having a bite to our bark, if we put it in that sense. But another acquisition that, I really love, and, he's got 3 goals so far, but Zakary Lavoie is going to be a really nice player for us because he's shown glimpse that he could be a very, very great goal scorer for us. And I think once he finds his groove and finds the right chemistry, now that the trades are done, he can start to, Kuwabara can start to work the lines around him and find what best fits with him. I think Zakary Lavoie is going to be a really, really nice player for the IceDogs, and I really like that we were able to pick him up from Mississauga. And I can't wait to see what the other two have. And, even Michael Podolu from North Bay, he was kind of a little bit highly touted in North Bay, and I remember North Bay fans were really high on him, even the commentators. And I remember the commentators were talking about him on Sunday, and how he can be really beneficial for the IceDogs. So I really liked all the trades that Darren DeDobler and management made, and I think they did a really nice job paving this way for this team for a nice rebuild, especially going again. I said it before, but going into a draft year where we potentially could have 2 top 5 picks, that's really good to have, especially in a rebuilding year.
Exactly. So good segue, Kyle, because that'll lead us into our first interview of the day before we get our first commercial break. We'll hit the interview with Zakary Lavoie, one of the newcomers that you mentioned, came over from Mississauga, has scored some nice goals so far for Niagara, and looks to take a leadership role. So here's one of the newest IceDogs, number 27, Zakary Lavoie. Joined on the Dog Pound podcast now by one of the newest members of the Niagara IceDogs, Zach Lavoie, coming over from the Mississauga Steelhead. Zach, a couple weeks here now with the team. Just how do you feel like you're fitting in and getting adjusted to the team down here in Niagara?
I fit in really well. I think we got a good young team, lots of guys on the come up, and I think the room's great, the program is great, so I really like it here.
And it seems like goal scoring is one of your biggest strengths, obviously. What the team wants you to do is score goals. But what is something else that maybe the IceDog fans could look forward to, the type of player that you want to be on and off the ice other than just scoring goals?
I'm a leader. I do things, as a pro, I try to do, everything I can to be at my best, and I think I try to do the little things right, and from there I score goals, and I think that's what they can expect from me.
And you came over from Mississauga. Obviously, they had a good run, made it to the second round of the playoffs last year. Just are you trying to kind of instill that playoff mindset into this team? Because, they really haven't had that opportunity yet. So do you think that that's something that you're going to bring? Is you've been to the playoffs before. You know what it takes to get there, and trying to build this, young group as they continue on the upcome here.
Yeah, of course. I mean, so we made some trades. I think there's a lot of changes coming to Niagara, and I think especially with a lot of young guys, they start to look up to you, and it's just about guiding them and showing them, like, this is what you have to do to be a pro, and this is what you have to do to make it far in the playoffs, and obviously that's what I'm doing right now.
And what type of player, is there a certain player that you looked up to in the NHL or in the OHL right now, that past or present, that you try to mold your game after, that you really looked up to growing up as a hockey fan?
Growing up, I liked Kovalev. That's where the 27 comes from. He probably had better hands than me. But no, right now I'd say probably Jake Gensel. Great skater, can shoot a puck, and he just plays with Crosby. I don't know. I really like him as a player, so it's easy to model my game after him.
Right. And do you have any goals for the rest of the season here? For the second half. Getting into the dog days here, January, February. The snow's out. It's cold. Just what are kind of your goals for personally, and then trying to help this team just improve? Because obviously, they're trying to make a run for that 8th spot. They got some work to do. But do you have anything that you can really talk about that you're really looking forward to the second half of the year here with Niagara?
Well, obviously, personally, you want to have success, score goals, get some assists. But I think those come with having team success, and I think we're going in the right direction right now. Obviously yesterday we lost to Barrie in overtime, which, really good team. And I thought we capitalized on a few more chances, and I think we got that game. So right now I think it's just, helping the team win, and then personal success will come from there.
And last question, just how excited were you to get this opportunity? I know, things didn't work out in Mississauga. You kind of wanted to have a new opportunity to kind of elevate your game to another level here. So are you really welcoming that challenge here, being, a top line forward and somebody that's being relied upon on and off the ice to be a leader, even though you just got here, a month ago?
Yeah, I am. Obviously, it's anytime you get the chance to be a leader, you want to, as a hockey player, especially if you want to make it to the next level, you really want those opportunities, and you want to embrace those. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now, and obviously leading on and off the ice. So,
number 27 in the Niagara IceDogs, Zakary Lavoie, thanks so much for doing this, and good luck today, and I look forward to talking again.
Thank you.
Wow, Kyle. I really like what I hear from Zakary Lavoie and what we've seen so far from him on and off the ice. Again, he's only been here, like you said in the interview, for less than a month here, but inserting himself in many different ways for this IceDogs group.
Alex Kovalev
and Jake Gensel. Those are two names I thought I'd never hear together in my entire life.
That has been. I'm sorry. There's nothing against Lavoie. Guy's great. So random.
I like it though.
You get Jonathan Days, you get Connor McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby,
Patrick
the
Kane.
McKinnon, right? You get the generic, but this guy out of left field goes Alex Kovalev, because that's where 27 come from. Guy's instantly my new favorite ice dog on the team. I'm sorry, Juan, step aside. Lavoie just took your spot.
Yeah, I like that.
That is fantastic. No, I'm not hating on that. It was just random, because I'm like, wait, Kovalev? That's just, it was fantastic. But yeah, a lot of, you can hear a lot of maturity in his voice for a young player. I love the fact that he's ready to take a leadership role of this team and be there for the younger players, ones that are younger than him, and to kind of teach them the ways. I think that was definitely my biggest pick out of this interview with him. Was I'm loving that he really wants to take that leadership role by the horns and take it with this team.
Yeah, and he's only a second-year player, and he sounds like a 4-year player. So
it sounds like his 08 year.
Yeah. So again, he came over from a good program in Mississauga before they decided to have a giant fire sale, and they made the playoffs last year. So he's bringing that experience over to the IceDogs, which I tried to highlight it there in the interview as well. So really good stuff there from Zakary Lavoie, and look forward to him continuing to grow here with this IceDogs group. So with that, That's it for the first segment today, which is talking about the trade deadline for the most part. So we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come back, and we're going to get our interview with assistant coach Brandon Shaw. We're going to get the weekend wrap-up with head coach Ryan Kuwabara, and we'll even hit history as well with the voice of the IceDogs, Ted Lehman. So stay right here. We'll be right back on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs.
Experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports and esports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive's game concept revolves around player props, which are simple over-unders on player stats. There are contests for traditional sports including the NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, and cricket, as well as esports titles including CSGO, Dota 2, League of Legends, and more coming soon. Here's how to play. Choose your lineup of over-unders for top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Each prop has a fantasy point total based on how likely it is to hit. The more points the selection is worth, the riskier it is. Rack up the most points and win a share of the prize pool. Thrive is awarded over $2 million in cash, so come and prop up today.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Hey, this is Landon Cato, and you're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of the Niagara IceDogs.
Thank you to Captain Landon Cato for the plug, as always. Guys, welcome back to segment 2 of today's Dog Pound Podcast. Kyle Lake and Brandon Caputo back with you here. Guys, you know the drill by now. Hit that like, hit subscribe, smash that bell for all updates on videos that get released on our YouTube channel. Give us some love over there and on whatever audio platform you're listening to us right now on demand. Kyle.
Yo, before we get anywhere, we're talking about this in the break.
I was wondering if you were going to bring this up.
I was just telling Brandon, I'm taking a look. I was skimming through, like I've seen all the trades that are happening across the CHL. Not just the IceDogs make trades, but across the CHL. And I stumble upon the Seattle Thunderbirds team from the WHL. If the Seattle Thunderbirds, who right now are in first place in their division, okay, or their conference, they are sitting at 28-5-1. They're 9-1 their last 10. They have 154 goals for and 85 against. Their team is ridiculous. It is insane. Guys like Jordan Gustafson, just listen to that. I'm going to go through the names. Brad Lambert. You know, they have their first round pick from 2021's on there with the last name McGinley, which is hilarious. I don't know if he's related, but crazy. Sam Popovich. They also have who they just acquired, Colton Dock. They also have I just seen his name.
Zellweger,
who they just that was
Dylan Gunther.
Yeah, Dylan Gunther, who they just traded for. Kevin Korchinski, who was Chicago Blackhawks' first round pick, the 7th overall pick. They have a ridiculous team. They have also Calgary's first round pick in 2017. Or that was the WHL. They have Nashville's 3rd round pick, Luke Prokop, on defense. They have Thomas Milic, who was Team Canada's starting goalie. This team is ridiculous. Chicago's 1st round pick from 2021 too on defense, Nolan Allen. Like, I'm just looking at the talent on this team, and what the heck? If this team doesn't win, I swear to God, it's a bust. And they just got Dylan Gunther.
And you also said in the break, sarcastically, like, might as well just go get Bedard.
Yeah, might as well you should have just gotten Bedard at that point. Oh my God, the Seattle Thunderbirds. My Lord, what a team.
Speaking of what a team, I think that's a perfect segue into the history portion of today's show that is always brought to you by the radio voice of the Niagara IceDogs on Country 89. That is the one and only Ted Lehman. Teddy, what do you got this week for our This Week in IceDogs history?
Hey, history fans, welcome to another edition of This Week in IceDogs History. Start on January 10th, 2014, not one, but two historical factoids. It was on that day 9 years ago when the IceDogs won their first ever game in the venerable old, looking like Maple Leaf Gardens, Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. It would take overtime. It would have to be a 6-5 hockey game, and in the same game, January 10th, 2014, Brendan Perlini set an IceDogs single game record with not one, not two, but three power play goals. It would be one night later that the hero from a night before will be the hero once again. Make it January 11, 2014, with the Windsor Spitfires in town. A 5-4 IceDogs history. Future IceDog Josh Hosang would get a goal for the visiting Spits, but the winner for the second straight night would come off the stick of none other than import defenseman Alexander Makulovich. 6-5 on a Friday, 5-4 on a Saturday. Speaking of imports, having a birthday on the 11th of January, Andre Mahala is celebrating today. He's turning 24. On the 12th day of January, 19 years for forward Evan Klein. A couple of tough guys are in the mix as well. We go back to, well, not the beginning, but almost. The Eliminator, as we used to call him, Mac Lemon, is having a birthday on the 12th of January. He'll be celebrating number 27, and it's 35 for the original IceDogs tough guy on a very tough IceDogs team back in 2007, 2008. 35 candles on the cake for Scott Fletcher. Friday the 13th, not unlucky if you're Graham Knott, you're celebrating 26. Or Matt Baldessera, you're celebrating 31. Same birthday for Shane Rover, all those happening on lucky Friday the 13th. And on Saturday the 14th, one more birthday, Cody Payne will be celebrating on Saturday the 14th, his 29th birthday. Thanks for being a part of it. Another look at this week in IceDogs history.
Wow.
Wow. Unbelievable. What history. I didn't even know where to start with that.
Well, we can start with your boy Brendan Perlini, your favorite Ice Dog of all time. 3 power play goals in one game, and then getting the winner scoring again the night after. But Alexander Makulovich getting the game winner. Just these names.
Some of the names, yeah. Graham Knott.
Some great
names
stuff.
Blotzer back. But I think the coolest thing was actually the first thing he said. This is the Ice Dogs getting their first ever win in Ice Dogs history, which was cool to hear. Anyway, it wasn't even in their building. It was in Kitchener at their famous arena there. So I think that's a really cool history bit. But I love these segments. These segments are by far the best part of the whole show. People don't want to listen to us. People rather listen to Ted talk about history. Let's be real here. If
you want to listen to Ted, you can go listen to him every single Ice Dogs game on the radio, Country 89 and GiantFM.com. There's your plug, Ted. So thank you once again for history as always. With that said, Kyle, we've got 2 more interviews to go on today's show. Again, we're not just going to sit here and dissect all the games. We had the trade deadline. We had a lot of stuff going on. So we're just going to kind of jump right through.
They were.
Exactly. The Ice Dogs played hard. They didn't win. Yeah. That was basically, there was a lot of compete in all 3 games. That was something that I will say quickly that I will take from that. There was a lot of compete. They competed 5-on-5 with 3 really good teams. The penalty kill was very good. The power play just was not there. And then 3-on-3 overtime, the team was still, overmatched, which I know.
In the third game, it is what it was. I mean, again, like I said, the scheduling was ridiculous, and the compete was still there, even though they must have been, pun intended, dog tired for Sunday, play an afternoon game while playing the night before and having to travel.
And going against that team, and going against North Bay. Like
at home in North Bay.
Yeah.
It is what that is.
Michael Podolou got a nice ovation and from the North Bay crowd, and Pasquale Zito was barking at his old teammates there. I'm sure it was all in good fun with Pasquale, and caught up with him.
You got to catch up with
I just caught up with him for a minute.
Italian buddy there,
Yeah.
Aron.
Said hi to him pregame, and he wished us well with the network and wished him well with the rest of the season in North Bay. I do think that they come back down here again, so hopefully we run into him when he does come back down here again. But he got the better of us.
Cookies for him.
Yeah, and shout out to the Frontline podcast. They got the win in this one, but we'll get you guys on the next one. Anyways, so The next interview is first-time guest on the show, and I can't believe it's taken us half a year to get him on the show. But it's assistant coach Brandon Shaw, who came over from the British Columbia Hockey League this year as a head coach to be an assistant coach back here in Niagara. He's a Barrie boy, so really good interview here with Brandon Shaw pregame in Barrie, his return home, I guess you could say. So we'll get you guys that, and then we'll come back and talk about Shawzy. Joined now by assistant coach for the Niagara IceDogs, Brandon Shaw. First time on the show. It's actually ironic being a Barrie boy here in Barrie pregame. Thanks so much for doing this. And what does it feel like to be back home?
Oh, it's always fun coming back home. Used to practice on this ice and played my minor hockey up here, same as my brother. And I got family coming to the game and friends, so it's always fun.
What was that like? Through your playing career, building up through the ranks and now making the transition to a coach. How has that kind of transition been for you, going from a player to a coach? And is there anything that maybe now as a coach you wish you would have told Brandon Shaw, the player, back in the day?
I'd be a way better player if I knew what I knew now. No, it's been a good transition. Like, I started coaching at a young age. I got hurt when I was young, so I started coaching when I was 20 years old, and I've been coaching junior since then. I started out while I was in university in Dundas, and then went to Cambridge and the GOJ, then went out to BC for 6-7 years, and then found my way back to Ontario closer to home. So I wasn't very good when I started, and I've learned a little bit more and more each and every year from a lot of great individuals, a lot of good hockey minds. So very thankful, very grateful for a lot of people.
What was it like out there in the BCHL, being in British Columbia? Was that a little bit of a culture shock for you as opposed to being here in Southern Ontario? How was that transition for you, and when did you really feel like you got comfortable out there?
Yeah, right away it was a big shock. The game was a lot faster. You deal with a lot of guys going NCAA Division I, and in my time I was fortunate to have a lot of good teams, a lot of good players out there. So I learned a lot very, very quickly. It seems similar to the jump from the BC to the OHL. You learn a lot quickly, and it's kind of baptism by fire. So the game's a little bit different because, again, it's focused more college route and kind of that north-south, really, really fast, not a lot of D-to-Ds. And then here there's a little more tactician to the game. And but I've really enjoyed the transition, being back closer to home. Mom likes coming to watch games, so it's been nice.
For sure, and you were a head coach out there, so what was that experience like that you're now trying to take with you back here, as assistant coach? Is there anything that really changes for you as far as like the X's and O's or the way you interact and try to coach these young men into being, successful hockey players down the road, or is it really just you're just going to coach the same no matter what?
Yeah, I think you have to stay true to yourself. You got to stay true to the person that you are, and for me, being a player's coach, being someone the guys can come to has always been a passion for me. I kind of take the big brother approach, so they always feel they can come to me. In terms of the roles of head coach and assistant coach, you're not living and dying with every decision that you make. You have to run it by the bosses and stuff like that. So every idea that you have might not go on the ice, but at the end of the day, it's for the betterment of the team. And we've had some really good individuals involved with the team, and Ryan does a fantastic job. I'm learning lots, just like the players are, and I think you're going to see the team take steps under his leadership and under Darren's leadership over the next few months. It's been a roller coaster ride so far for a lot of people involved, fans, coaches, staff, players. But as this group comes together more and more, I think you're going to see better and better results. There's just a learning process that's happening right now.
And going off that, about the team itself, there's been a lot of roster turnover. There's been, guys in and out of the lineup. What do you really tell the guys, at a young age? Because they're still in the developmental stage. It's a developmental league. Their minds are still developing in the young men here. So what do you really tell them, when they lose a friend or they lose a roommate or a busmate that goes on to play for another team? Like, is there anything that you guys really try to tell them or try to coach them through? Because it can be really hard at times for them to kind of go through those situations.
Yeah, you're there for them mentally and for mental and emotional support, and that's where the big brother approach comes in. When guys are having a tough day, we a lot of the time forget that these guys aren't pro athletes. As staff, as fans, as as everybody involved, we forget these guys aren't pros yet. They're learning to be pros. They're still kids. So being there for them mentally, emotionally, and in all those situations when they go through change. Change is hard for a 28-year-old or a 48-year-old, let alone a 16, 17, 18, or 19-year-old. So just being there for them, having someone that will listen to them, and then, again, really trying to help push them in their development. So there's a lot to it, but, yeah, we just try and focus on, at the end of the day, when you get to this level, it's a little bit more of a business, and as you move forward, it's going to happen. It's the business of hockey, but to prepare yourself at a young age, it's actually an opportunity. It's not a disadvantage.
And what are you guys looking at for the second half of the year here? This is going to be your team for the rest of the season, most likely here now, and just the building from the beginning of the year to now. Just what have you seen from the progress, and where do you think you guys are really trying to focus on as a coaching staff to really get through to the players to improve in some certain areas?
Yeah, there's been big improvements from a lot of guys. Sometimes it's hard to see, and obviously it's a results-driven business, but there's little habits that guys have had to develop at the start of the year, and there's been a lot of turnover and a lot of different systems, a lot of different things that are thrown at these guys. Again, they're kids, and they're not pros where you show something on the board and they learn it like that. They have to go through it. A lot of them are tactile learners, and they have to experience it real time, and they're going to make mistakes. So our goal is to continue to learn and build, and with the leadership of Ryan and Darren, these guys will continue to learn and build, and I think you'll see a way different team the back half of the year here. You usually see an underdog team every year, and we're hoping that's us. They just need to come together, and you can see that change in the room so far, and you'll see the results on the ice coming here.
And lastly, for you personally, was there a certain player or a certain coach that you've really looked up to as far as trying to mold your style when you were a player and when you were now transitioning to a coach? Is there a certain person or certain people that have helped you along the way, or just people you've seen from afar that you've tried to mold your coaching style and play after?
Yeah, I have a lot of great mentors. I consider Kui a mentor now. I have a mentor out in the WHL who's been great to me, Devin Proddy's in Swift Current. A lot of guys in PEI where I spend my summers, like Gerard Gallant, guy who I don't know exceptionally well, but I look up to a guy like Dave Cameron from last night, a guy from PEI, and then Joe Martin, who I coach with, Tally Campbell, Jeff Wagner, all guys I coach with out west, and they're great individuals that I learned a lot from. So really happy to kind of have spent my time with them and grow in the game, and now I have a great mentor in Kui, who I learn something new every day. He's a great man, and same as Darren. I learn something new every day. Every single conversation I have with these guys, I'm picking up a little tidbit that I'll take with me and hopefully a long career.
Assistant coach for the Niagara IceDogs, Brandon Shaw, thanks so much for doing this, taking the time to speak with us on the Dog Pound podcast for the first time, and hopefully we can have you on again, not wait a whole half a season to do so.
Would love to join again. Thanks so much for having me.
Kyle, great stuff there from Brandon Shaw, assistant coach. He's been coaching since he's 20 years old. His playing career got cut short, and Ryan Kuwabara has become a really good mentor for him as well. Those are the two big takeaways that I had.
Yeah, and I think the one thing for me is him being kind of like the big brother figure to a lot of these players, like the question you asked, because they go through a lot. Not only trying to get better and to become a pro, but they go through the stress of you guys say fan backlash or players getting traded they were roommates or good friends with, right? Like they go through a lot of mental hills and mental challenges in their their junior career, and for him to be there as a big brother for them to go to is a really good thing to hear that what he does while he's there with this team. So that was my biggest takeaway, and that's extremely important. Like he said, a lot of people forget they're not pros yet. They're learning to be pros, and they need to be challenged at times, but sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle, and they're not always treated like people trying to become pros. Sometimes people lose sight and, kind of treat them like they're pros, and, that's not always a good thing, especially for people that are under 20 years old, right? They're going to go through a lot of mental challenges at this age. So yeah. I'm glad that he's there as a big brother and a big brother figure in that way, but also a coach at the same time.
Yeah, you can tell they really respect Shazi, just by his presence, the way he talks to the players, interacts with them, and, I think they like to joke around with him a little bit, and he can be approachable to them if they need to come to him with not only hockey stuff, but, stuff that happens in life, and there's some of these guys are still in high school and trying to work through that as well, so this is, like you mentioned, this is big development years for them as men, not just hockey players, so to have somebody like Brandon Shaw there for them, I think is big, and I think he's brought a lot to the coaching staff and for them this year with the IceDogs, and I hope he's going to be here for the foreseeable future as well as we get past this season. But yeah, Kyle, look towards this week's games. Owen Sound today, I guess, when this episode comes out tonight, playing the Owen Sound Attack, the only meeting that Owen Sound comes in. I know they've got Colby Barlow, who's projected to be a top 10 NHL pick right now. He's been very good for Owen Sound. And then they go on the road for 2 games on Friday and Saturday again in Mississauga and in Peterborough. Finally get to see Peterborough for the first time this season. Or, sorry. I can't remember. I think Peterborough was in Niagara once already.
They were
this
in
season.
Niagara.
Yeah.
I remember them being in I don't know if we've been there this season.
Yeah, it's the first game in Peterborough. So, again, 3-game week and then a 4-game week the following week. So, what are you hoping to see from the IceDogs in these 3 games? And, again, it's still a new roster.
Yeah, it's tough to kind of predict because I kind of want to see what they have now because they just lost a player and they acquired a player yesterday. So, or technically today, but yesterday when you hear the show. So I really don't really have a prediction. It's going to be a kind of wait and see kind of thing. First time we're facing Owen Sound. They have a pretty good team out there. We'll see what happens with that. Mississauga's lost kind of track a little bit this year and lost some players. So that'll be interesting just for the fact, too, that Lavoie's first game back against his former team. That's one thing to look forward to against that. Hopefully he has a big game against his former team. And then Peterborough on Saturday, which Peterborough are a contending team right now. So that's going to be, of course, it's always the third game in the set of games. It's always the toughest for the IceDogs. And, of course, it's on a back-to-back. So it is what it is. We'll see what happens. But I'm just excited to see what this team now, because this is the team we're going to get for the rest of the year, what they have to bring to the table, what, the continuing rookies, the players that have been here, how they develop the rest of the year. Guys like a Kevin, we'll see how he develops among other people and the new players that are here as well. So, you know what? I'm really just excited to watch each game. I really don't have a prediction or, wanting certain amount of points out of these games coming up. I'm just going to be excited to see how this team shapes up and how Ryan puts together these lineups with now the set team for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and you can see the compete levels there. He's trying to get them to play a certain way, and with the guys they brought in from good programs there, they've got good habits as well. So you can see the progression there. They might not be the most skilled team, but they're not going to just roll over and they're going to make it as difficult on the opposition as they can right now as they continue to grow into solid OHL players. But before we wrap up the show today, we'll get our weekend wrap-up with the head coach of the Niagara IceDogs, Ryan Kuwabara, and then we'll come back and wrap up the end of the show. Back on the Dog Pound podcast with head coach of the Niagara IceDogs, Ryan Kuwabara, following the back-to-back week, Coach. 3 games in 3 nights against 3 tough opponents. Just can you sum up the team's performance and, the compete level was there, even though the results and the points might have not come your way?
Yeah, definitely. You know what? I thought the 3 games, we definitely came to work, right? And that's going to be, one of the identity markers for us is, we want to make sure we come to the rink and work as hard as possible, right? That's going to be one of the things where, if we don't do that, I don't think we're going to have success. The other stuff, the systems are starting to come, all the little details of just, how to play the game the right way for our group is coming along. I'm happy with the progress we're making. Obviously we want to get more points, but, to get 1 point out of 3 tough teams is a win for me.
And can you talk about, 4 new guys in the lineup? You've got Lavoie's been here a couple weeks now, Potaloo, and then the 2 new guys from Windsor, Bronson Ride and Chris O'Flaherty. Can you just talk about, inserting all those new guys into the lineup and how you think that they're coming along with learning the system and learning how you guys want to play and the identity that you guys want to have?
Yeah, definitely. They come in, they're hard workers. That's one thing I don't have to really bark about too much with those guys. They come in, They play the game the right way, and you know what? If we get a whole group playing that way, that's going to be a good sign for our club for sure. But you know what? When they come in and they compete and they finish body checks, and I think it's infectious. You know, for our group, it shows that we're never really out of a game. Which I believe now that we have the thinking that geez guys, we can come back, and if Danner scores that goal at the end of the second instead of hitting the post. A 4-2 game, you never know, right? So it's that belief in our group and our system, and where we're going to be moving forward.
The ebbs and flows of games, momentum changes. If a bounce goes in here or there, like you mentioned, if you capitalize on a few opportunities, games could really, be different. Podolou tonight has that opportunity right at the opening shift. You talk about Gustinelli with the penalty shot. Seems like there's opportunities there for you guys to really get into these games, and it just doesn't go in, and you kind of just have to keep them going, because at the end of the day, you still have to try to go out there every night and try to win. So how do you kind of just make sure that their spirits are still up despite not getting the results right away and having that instant gratification?
Yeah, it's tough too, right? I think they've all come from teams in minor hockey where they've probably had success, right? So they're used to that, and right now I think we have a really young group that's learning to be a team, learning to play the systems, learning to be a group. But if we control our controllables, which is paying attention to detail, which is the systems, our work ethic and our attitude, things will come together, and I think they are starting to right now. Once we get going here in the next couple of weeks, and we have our group, that's going to be key.
One positive would probably be the penalty kill, especially tonight against a North Bay team that's has so many weapons, and they've traded so many draft picks for top players. Just can you talk about your efficiency on the penalty kill? I know the power play isn't where you want it to be yet, but the penalty kill has definitely stepped up, especially against some really good teams and some high-powered offenses.
Yeah, definitely. I think Shawzy's been working really well with those guys, dialing them in and getting to play together as a group of four. It's important on the PK. You guys got to all be connected and know what jobs you need to do, because the PP is going to try to expose your weaknesses, and if you can be together as a group and take away some of those by either good sticks or blocking shots or playing hard, PK is not glamorous. It's one where you got to put your work boots on and definitely try to shut down their skilled players.
You talk like a big road trip like this, 2 games, 3 games in 3 days, and a northern road trip like this. Do you think it's good for a team, especially with some new players, to get to know each other off the ice and try to at least put something together as far as off ice chemistry as well? Because on ice, they're still trying to get to know each other as well. So do you think something like this is good for a team to have when you have new bodies?
Yeah, definitely. I think you always hear that. If you're able to get out on the road and be a group together, whether it's on the bus here or in the hotels, where you can just kind of chum around and be yourself and have some fun. Really, that's part of the game. What's is important. There's enough stress out there with these guys having to think they have to do this, that, and the other, and just to be able to kick back and be young men and to learn about each other, I think is going on the road provides that opportunity.
And lastly, another big week coming up. I believe 3 or 4 games again. So just what do you tell the guys about just making sure they get some rest the next couple of days, because it's a short week. You play again on Wednesday. So what's like the mindset going into another big week with after you just came off 3 games in 3 nights? Does the message change, or how do you kind of approach that as we're in the second half of the season now?
Yeah, well, I think we knew as a team and as a group that January and February are going to be tough. We have a lot of games that are crunched into a short amount of time, and for them it's just learning what they need to do to take care of their bodies, to get the fluids, to get the sleep, right? It's part of learning to be a pro. Those are the things where sometimes you can't learn them without going through them, right? And to have the opportunity to have a great training staff as we do, we've implemented different things, pre-game, post-game, and rituals and routines that I think provide our guys the best opportunity to recover and be fresh for the next game.
Head coach of the Niagara IceDogs, Ryan Kuwabara, thanks so much for doing this, and again, we'll talk again next week.
Brandon, thanks so much.
Kyle, really good thoughts from the head coach of the IceDogs, Ryan Kuwabara, as always. What were your quick thoughts here before we wrap up the show?
really, again, I always say it every time we hear from Ryan, it's the composure is always nice to hear, and not panicking when a team's at this point and what they're like right now. I think that he finds a good way to find the positives in those losses, and that he acknowledges that the team still finds a way to at least compete even though they're losing these games, and so they're losing them a little bit closer and more at a competitive level now. So just staying composed is a big thing for me, and that it's a big, and it goes a long way, at least in my books, and I hope it does with management, that as long as he stays composed, that this team is in very good hands for the future.
Absolutely. And again, I like mentioning, the training staff and what they're trying to implement, new things on and off the ice, trying to get these guys ready to go. It just seems like they've really got a good plan on how they want to approach the team and how they want the guys to be, coming off a long weekend like that, and then having to go again into another 3-game week and then a 4-game week following that. So again, the conditioning, the on and off the ice just recovery process is going to be big for them as well, because you can't just go and play those games and expect you to be up to snuff. Like, you need to get your rest, you need to be able to recover, you need to be able to be there mentally and physically at the end of the day for all these games in such a short amount of time.
Exactly.
So with that said, guys, we're going to wrap up today's episode of the Dog Pound Podcast, a jam-packed show for the Trade Deadline show. Again, thanks so much to Brandon Shaw and Zakary Lavoie for the featured interviews, and head coach Ryan Kuwabara, as always, for the weekend wrap-up for the games. Again, tonight, Owen Sound Attacker in town at the Meridian Center. Get down there, get your tickets, cheer them on against the Owen Sound Attack and Colby Barlow. Should be exciting to see him play. So if you want to see a top 10 NHL draft pick, come down to the arena and see Colby Barlow, who most likely be taken around that spot. Guys, follow us at Dog Pound Podcast for all of your Ice Dogs updates for the official Twitter account of the Ice Dogs right now, as they're still working through their verification issues. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Armchair GM Sports Network. Follow me at bcaputo _AGM, and my co-host Kyle at just Kyle51. And until next week, guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Dog Pound Podcast. Bark, bark, bark. Go Dogs, go. We talk to you guys again next week.